Welcome to the show. My name is Claire Lee, and I'll be your host for this podcast. For this pilot episode, I'll be remotely sitting down with Coach Bass to talk about the future of Lambert and everything it has in store for the upcoming school year on clubs, sports, and our school spirit. We'll also be discussing what this new podcast will mean for the school. So, get ready, because this is Lambert in Real Time. Hello, Lambert Longhorns. My name is Claire Lee, and I'll be your host for this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this very first pilot episode. We're really excited for this podcast, and to commemorate this event, I brought a very special guest. And this is Coach Bass!
Let's go, Claire! Let's go! Woo!
Thank you so much for being here and talking to me today about everything that's going to happen at Lambert, or what we think is going to happen at Lambert. I am really excited for this project and everything that it has in store for us. Some people might know that this isn't a totally new idea at Lambert. Coach Bass, you have your own podcast called Lambert Plains, so could you explain a little bit more about your podcast, what the differences are, and what the listeners can tune in on?
Absolutely, Claire. First of all, we are so pumped up for real time. It's going to be great because Lambert Plains is just a monthly podcast that I usually do where we highlight new teachers, adults in the building, things going on, but we send it out to the parents. Lambert in Real Time is about the students, and we're so excited. It's student-driven by you and others that are going to be involved. I know Dr. Davison is pumped up about it. Last year, as you know, I got us going on Instagram with Lambert Hype, which, of course, we're going to be hyping Lambert all year long again. But a piece of Lambert Hype this year is we're going to include your real-time show so we can hear what the students have to say. It is going to be a great year as we get back to what has been a different time since March in our area and in the world.
Yeah, totally. Globally, it's been confusing and sometimes a little scary. And especially for school, we're not sure what's going to happen until we get there. With this podcast, I just want to highlight what we're going through as a Lambert family. So the highs, the lows, and anything in the middle that regards to what we're dealing with this year.
Well, one thing I'll tell you right now, Lambert is, it's resilient. The students, the faculty, look, every day, things change. I mean, I always say things, especially this year, are really written in smoke. You have a plan for one thing and that smoke dissipates because something changes, with what's going on in the world and we just have to roll with it. But we want to continue to give students the experience. We don't want something that, kind of drives us to make things better for your year coming up to 2021.
I think because of that, we have this new sense of gratitude towards the teachers and staff who have been working extra hard to ensure that we're having the best education we can while maintaining safe and while having fun. And so with that, I really want to show appreciation to the teachers, staff, coaches, and anyone else for what they've been doing for our school and how they're overcoming the difficulties that comes with social distancing and wearing masks. This podcast is truly a platform for anyone and everyone to talk about what their experiences are. So with that, the first part of the podcast is slowly coming to a close, and we'll be right back after this break. Welcome to the break part of the podcast. This is where we're going to talk about news, ads, or anything else that we need to discuss before the second part of the podcast. So, Coach Bass, could you explain to the listeners a little bit more about the break?
Well, Claire, I'm so excited because you had mentioned me. I love your format and the format of the break, allowing you to have some sponsors, having you do some trivia questions. We have our Year in Spirit competition. We're going to, get that thing rolling as soon as school starts again. So we can use your show, if it's okay with you, for a little bit of competition every week for our listeners to go ahead and respond on Instagram or in person here in the building to get points for the Year in Spirit, which, by the way, was won by the mighty freshman class last year. Highly impressive, Claire.
Congratulations to the freshman class. I'm really glad to hear that the youngest group of Lambert Longhorns are willing to participate and be a part of our Lambert culture and being a Lambert Longhorn. And with that, let's go back to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. This is the second part of the podcast where we're going to discuss our topic in detail. So, Coach Bass, I know you're heavily involved with clubs, extracurricular activities, sports, and basically anything that has to do with Lambert spirit. So I was wondering, when I brought this idea of a podcast up to you, what you thought and why you thought it was going to be helpful for our Lambert culture.
Well, I think, Claire, one of the main things this year, and again, it's constantly changing. I mean, it's fluid. What we talk about today, a week from now, could be changed, as you well know, with everything that's been going on. But what we hope to have is use your podcast to continue to just bring our school together, even if it's virtually or through audio, because right from the get-go, we're not going to be able to probably have our usual big gathering pep rally events. Sports are still on the table. Football season was announced yesterday as being pushed back 2 weeks. So football season will begin September 13th. We are still planning on doing our homecoming this year. I'm sure it's going to be a little bit different format. We were going to do an early homecoming in August, which as of now, obviously is pushed back. We've not set the date, but I'm sure it'll be a little bit later in the semester when we get to get the vibe of how the steady flow of school is going. But long story short, Claire, is we are planning to put on shows, sports, all of our normal events. They're just going to be tweaked. They're going to be different. They're going to look differently, but we're not giving up on that. We're still going to have high school as you all deserve it to be, which is a great experience for all.
Again, we're really thankful for all the hard work that the administration and the staff put in to ensure that we're having a great year. I know some students who are a little discouraged last year because the physical school year ended so early. They've been working all year to build up their skill in order to perform or go to a conference, participate in things, but they really didn't get to. For this year, we're not really sure what's going to happen, but we can be sure of what we do, and what we can do is stay safe and protect each other.
Yeah, so I agree with what you're saying, Claire. In fact, Dr. Davison, the admin team, we've met, throughout the entire summer, planning on what's best for the school, student safety, as we prepared for hopefully, which would not be an all virtual opening, which we're not going to have according to our superintendent, Dr. Beard. And as of now, we are coming back to school. We are starting on the 13th. Some students, which is totally fine, have opted to go straight virtual. Some are coming here for a full day, and some are doing a little of both, and we're working through that. But regardless, we are going to keep not only the school safe for everybody as best we can, but we're also going to make the experience great academically, athletically, culturally, relationship-wise. We want that high school experience at Lambert not to be any less than what the experiences everyone who ever come through these hallways had before 2021.
It's great to hear that students and parents get to decide what they want their school year to look like, whether it's all online, all at school, or part-time. One thing that comes up with talking about the physical school year is clubs, because clubs are fundamentally a physical meetup of people working together in order to achieve a specific goal. So what do you think that clubs will look like within this year, and how this will affect clubs within the near future?
What we do at the beginning of the year, as you well know, and usually right when we get back, we have the big club rush for all our freshmen and students who come into the building to join clubs. Clubs are varied in the sense that some are straight service clubs, some get service hours where they get cords on graduation, some are clubs just for fun, some are clubs that tie into sports, clubs that are for planning for a lot of the big ticket events here, like homecoming and prom that student council does. So we have probably close to 100 clubs in the building. Clubs are going to happen because we want our students to get involved. And one thing about Dr. Davison, he allows clubs to be created as long as there's a sponsor. So we're going to continue to have clubs. However, probably for the first part of the school year, just till we get things in the flow, we're holding off on our club rush and our big club drive. So all those students out there who are listening to this, don't fret. We are going to have clubs this year, but we are going to be in full swing with clubs as we get back into the building. It just may be slightly delayed.
I was wondering, for the people who opted to do their entire school year online, what are their options for clubs and extracurricular activities?
For that group of students who have opted to start virtually, completely virtually, we want them to know that, hey, you're still a Lambert Longhorn. So, I mean, we're going to find a way to keep them involved in our clubs, even if they're not in the building, including those students in clubs, so they could be, we want to hear their voice, and we want them to be active in it, even if they're not in the building. So we want them to know that.
So if you can safely participate, please feel free to do so. A concern every year is freshmen. They're new and they don't really understand the environment at Lambert, so they're really stressed going into high school. But now, on top of that, they have to deal with social distancing, the weird scheduling, the roundup being canceled, and Club Rush is probably going to be pushed back or going to be canceled too. So how are they going to navigate this year?
Claire, that's a great question. And Roundup has been the big decision making. How we're going to handle Roundup when we can only have small groups of students in the building. So right now, I'm not going to have a specific 100% answer, but I can tell you that our game plan is to do a virtual kind of a roundup where we're going to put out a video just for incoming freshmen about what to expect here at Lambert. And also we're going to open up time for our Compass students to give tours prior to the start of school to any incoming freshmen and who would like to see what Lambert's all about. That's all in the works right now. We are not planning on an in-person roundup as of now. Instead, we're going to do it virtually, as well as give all students, not just freshmen, the opportunity to go online and get their class t-shirt, lockers, our freshmen to get their PE uniform. So all those things that we usually do during roundup, we're going to do more virtually this year, and that's to come in the next week or two.
So if any freshmen or new Lambert kids are listening, the administration, they're working super hard to ensure that you have the best year you can at Lambert. On the topic of Lambert students, I want to discuss a little bit more about why we decided to start this podcast. With quarantine and social distancing, many of us have never experienced anything like this before in our lives or in our generation. With this podcast, we want to utilize it just like a digital journal for Lambert, where we talk about everything that Lambert as a school has been going through and as individuals, what you've been going through. So if you're interested in sharing your story or recommending someone, feel free to go to our Instagram at LHS Realtime to fill out a form and let us know what you want to hear on our podcast. At Lambert, we're really resilient, and I know that we're going to get through this together safely.
Like I said, I think that, Lambert, as far as, with our expectation of wearing masks this year because of everything that's been going on, and we have some changes as far as the way, we're going to block scheduling this year. There's changes, but we need to view these as changes that will end up being, a good thing. And we're going to work through it, and we're going to enjoy it, and we're going to do everything we can to make Lambert High School a great experience, as it always is. And one of those new things, it's constantly changing. We're excited about the newness of real time. It's going to be great to have a student voice, and we're excited to have this podcast as a way for you, Claire, and your connection with your students to have something to say about Lambert High School and get it out there via our Instagram and other channels for everybody to hear what we've got going within these walls.
Coach Bass and I have been working on this podcast over the summer, and we're really excited for this to become a part of your Lambert routine. The podcast is coming to a close, and I just want to thank you, Coach Bass, for talking to me about what it's going to be like at Lambert in terms of extracurricular activities.
Claire, you're awesome. It's going to be a great year. Hook 'em horns, baby. We're going to have a great year. Let's go!
You heard it, everyone. Thank you so much for listening and tuning into our new podcast. If you want to keep up with us, you can check us out on LHS Realtime, and we're going to be uploading this podcast on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great rest of your day. Hook 'em!